Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Cool. And is this in the presentation mode?
I guess no, it's not. It's not.
That's weird. I've got it on this slide.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope you are all well. Welcome to the best sustainable in fashion event this year. We are here with Ben from Effekt Footwear, and he's going to present his idea, his project, and all the subjects around it. And I hope you have a great event. We will have Ben. We will have also Bernardo from 8000 Kicks. We will also have Marta and Miguel. He's going to join us in our roundtable. And be welcome. Please be sure to go to the chat and post all your questions. This is intended to be a very dynamic event. And just let's go, Ben.
Cool. How are we looking?
Yeah, we're looking great.
Presentations there. Okay, cool. So yes, just want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. I know it's a Friday and we all want to start drinking, but you know, we appreciate you taking your time to join us and deepen our knowledge and have a very invigorating discussion surrounding sustainability while joining a few experts. So yeah, let's hope we have a nice afternoon. And yes, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer anything that you have. So yeah, my brand is Effekt Footwear, and of course we're here to discuss whether or not sustainable fashion is the new standard, and I would like to share my experiences with you today. So let's get going. My name is Ben Smits. I come from Australia. My city was Melbourne, where I graduated RMIT University with a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. But now I've since moved to Europe. I live in Austria, and I'm studying packaging technology and sustainability in Vienna. So you can see that I don't have a traditional fashion background, but with the skills that I've accumulated throughout my studies, I've been able to use my lessons there and apply them to my fashion project, especially in regards to sustainability and circular economy. So a little history of our brand. We initially started with the premise of creating a responsible footwear. This was back at the end of 2018, where there was a little bit done in terms of sustainability within the fashion industry, especially in footwear, but there was not so much a definitive answer or some really good, how do we say, like frameworks which to work around. So what we decided to do was, you know, try and go beyond what was being done at the time in terms of sustainability. We really wanted to create a project that kind of transcended just footwear itself. And we wanted to do that by creating a product that, you know, we can help clean up the planet, but also bring something to the market. So what we decided to do was focus on our local supply chain. So basically, all of our materials, waste materials, are sourced in Europe between Portugal and Spain, and we're also producing our shoes in Portugal as well. So really having a smaller supply chain means that we don't necessarily have to source one thing from one part of the planet, transport it somewhere else for it to be stitched or dyed or whatever. We're doing everything, you know, on the continent. Sorry. So a few setbacks, of course. Everyone's aware of the COVID-19 situation. Unfortunately, that had a massive disruption to supply chains. You know, our production schedule was really impacted by this. And unfortunately, my original partner decided to leave, which was a bit of a loss because he come from the footwear industry himself. So what we ended up doing was this year we threw a crowdfunding campaign, and we had about, you know, €2,000 worth of funding. And we were able to, you know, create a successful campaign. You know, we relied heavily on our network, and there was, you know, we were fortunate that a lot of people believed in the idea, not just the shoe itself, but what we were so much standing for. So the motivation to start this business was to create something that was regenerative. As I mentioned earlier, sustainability wasn't well defined in the footwear industry several years ago. And at the time, people were, you know, planting a couple of trees and saying, all right, job's done, we're sustainable, we've offset our emissions. However, we wanted to create this product that helped not just reduce our environmental impact, but clean up the planet as well. So basically what we have is a sneaker with a closed loop circular component where we take the shoe back. And by sort of pushing beyond the limits of CO2 output, we wanted to really become an industry leader in terms of what our shoe stands for and how we produce it. So beyond the sneaker, we wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of encourage a shift in mindset amongst consumers and designers, future business leaders and things like this. So we believe that using recycled and repurposed materials, we can store CO2 in everyday products, not just shoes, but we want to encourage this, beyond just the footwear industry. We wanted to prove that you can actually have a really high quality product with a very low environmental impact. As I mentioned before, it's circular. So we take the shoes back where and when we can, depending on what the consumer decides to do. And we also wanted to prove that we can turn waste into a value. So the thought behind this is if we are making something out of ocean plastic, and I of course know the problems with polyester and things, but the idea was to say let's start using this as a material. Hopefully we encourage more people into the market. Hopefully we encourage more people to see the value of it, and by giving this material exposure, we can obviously get more people using it, which helps push the collection, the cost of collection and processing down, so it's a bit more accessible. So our innovation. So one of the terms that we coined throughout this process was the 21st century alchemy. So as most of you may know, like the very early, chemists, they would, get a rock and pretend to turn it into gold, and basically, prove that they could upcycle something from, a raw waste material into something of value. And that's what we've done. We've turned our trash into trainers, so to speak. We're following the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 12, which is helping to push responsible production and consumption throughout the world. As I mentioned before, the circular component, we're encouraging consumers to send back the shoes where we can refurbish, resell on a second-hand basis if they're still in good condition, or of course recycle them into materials if they're beyond repair. So by doing this, we keep the value of these materials in the economy. We keep the value relatively low when it comes to repurposing these shoes, and of course, we are trying to reduce the overconsumption, which is another problem in this fashion industry, by using a pre-order model. Of course, we also want to support the local economy. I live in Europe now, so it's a lot easier than what it is in Australia. So, it's working on having a localized supply chain, like I mentioned before, helps reduce the impact of logistics. It also strengthens the local economy through job creation, and of course, we also want to promote and support the local European footwear industry. So yeah, that's me and my short presentation for today. If you guys have any questions or would like to get in contact outside of this session, take a screenshot here of my contact details, and yeah, I look forward to your questions and getting connected to everyone. So yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for your time, for your presentation. I personally have one question for you.
Yes.
Since we have met in other ventures, and I have one question regarding the circularity of the business model. Many fashion brands at the moment are leaving into this sustainability approach to their business models. As you may know, many of them are not even close to what we could consider sustainable. But the use of materials, new techniques, new suppliers. But the circularity of your business model is something that is difficult to adopt for some brands. Do you believe that it will become a standard, or it will get more traction into those big brands, or do you believe that it's just something for smaller brands?
Well, definitely for, let's say, comparing myself to Nike. So Nike is a multi-billion-dollar, company that has a global supply chain. And for them just to steer ship, let's compare them to the Titanic. It's going to be very long and slow process in order to shift towards a circular business. For startups, I guess we're like the speedboat. We're much more maneuverable. We can make mistakes, we can make changes without it having so much of an impact to our business operations and things like this. However, if people pay attention to what's happening in the EU, and especially regarding the EU's circular economy package regarding textiles and fashion, I think it will naturally have to come through to brands if they would like to continue selling their products in Europe. There needs to be some responsibility on the behalf of the producer to manage what they bring into the economy. So that's why we just wanted to start out doing it this way, because we could obviously see the writing on the wall, and why start something where you're going to have to change it completely down the track. So that's how we started. But of course, being much smaller, we have easy ways to do this.
Okay. I think we may have a new question, and I think it's even from Gilles, who is also a fan of you. Maybe
yes.
The micro problems over here.
Hello, Ben.
Yo, how's it going?
Yo, nice to meet you. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question regarding the recycled shoes that you do.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And I wanted to know what kind of shoes can you recycle, and what kind of material, the raw material that you take from the shoes to recycle. Like how many percentage from a shoes you can recycle from it, and how do you do to get shoes to come to you? I mean, is it something that you ask to your consumer to give you a shoes and then you give you back, or how do you do these processes?
Okay, so I believe that for the circular economy to work, all the stakeholders need to be involved. So we've had extensive discussions with our suppliers, and we've been able to make this shoe here with no metal pieces and nothing that will disrupt the current technologies in regards to footwear recycling. So of course we need to have help from the consumer to send things back. So we ask that when the shoes are damaged, or they don't need them anymore, or they decide they don't like the colorway, rather than throwing it out, we ask them to send it back to us. So of course there needs to be, and we're still trying to work this out as well, but we need to encourage the consumer by making it as easy as possible. So whether or not that is just a return bag or a return slip that they can order off the website for free, we send it out to them with a little package, and then they can send it back to us with the postage already paid. And of course that needs to be priced into the price of our shoes as well. But of course, yes, we offer people discounts on their next pairs to do that. So we don't just say, hey, send it back and you have to pay for it. We also reward our customers in that regard. Regarding the recycling of the shoes, so like I said, this sole here is 70% recycled rubber and 30% new rubber. So that's the only new components that we have in this shoe. But hopefully you can see on the camera all these little speckles and things like this. That's footwear that has been returned to our factory, or the factory that we source the rubber from, and they basically grind it up and then put it back into their rubber processor. But if we get shoes that can still use the sole, then we will just take the upper off, recycle this, and then we'll totally take use of this sole material, and then we can sell it back online as a refurbished or a recycled product as well. So we want to really make this zero waste shoe. But if the consumer can't return it, or it ends up in the bin because they just don't want it anymore, then I don't really think that's a zero waste shoe. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. And what just one thing more, it's about the future of your brand. I mean, what are you thinking also to expand the shoes industry? I mean, for other type of shoes like heels or things like that?
Yep. So of course we're going to use the design here and turn it into a slip-on, a mid-top and a high top and things like this, which helps us reduce our cost because we can still use the same soles and things like this. in regards to heels and things like that, I think just for the moment we're going to stick with just casual footwear, because we have a sustainable shoe that can be used with jeans. It can be used by a male or a female. It could look cool in a dress or when you're wearing shoes. So it's no point to make a sustainable shoe which you can only really wear with one outfit. So heels are quite limiting. But what we also want to do is explore flip-flops, or thongs as what they're called from Australia. And we also want to explore the digital fashion space as well, because that way we can create a product once, sell it many times over, and kind of donate to some charities and some other work like that we're doing as well. So
okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great one. Ben, let's go for Bernardo, who is also in the shoe business. Thank you for your presentation. It was lovely. I always love your shoes, and I always love the particles on the sole. I think they are amazing. They give it some kind of magic. Bernardo is here with us, and he's also, but he has a different approach to sustainability on the shoe business. And let me make Bernardo presenter. Bernardo is from 8000 Kicks, and 8000 Kicks has the first hemp waterproof shoes. It's created, Bernardo.
Hello, can you guys see me? Sorry,
we cannot see you. Now we can see you. Yeah. Hi, Bernardo. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you guys?
Yeah, we are good. We are good. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Bernardo. And
my pleasure.
For our attendees, basically you founded 8000 Kicks, and what's actually, in a funny way, I will definitely go into that on the questions. What triggered Bernardo was the invitation to Bernardo was the story of his CTO. I'm sure he's going to talk about it. It's a very curious CTO, and I believe that it's one of the best cases of innovation and tradition mixed together, in this case for sustainability. Bernardo, the stage is all yours, and please present us with your shoes also.
Here they are. They just arrived. Yeah, my colleague just I forgot them in the car. I just got them here. Actually, here right now, this is a sneak peek of our new model, which is gonna launch really soon.
Okay, nice one. Looks nice.
Yeah, it's gonna come next. Not this year, but early next year. We've been developing actually right now. I just got out of the lab, and I have great news. During the past 2 years, we've been developing fabric, and we've just, I'm going to show you guys, because I'm really proud of this. It took us a long time. This is our first iteration of fabric, hemp fabric. And as you guys know, people haven't been using hemp fabric since since before it was banned. And now we've been developing a lot. This is our second iteration of fabric. And this is our, obviously you cannot see this in the image, but we've just tested this. We brought this to the lab, and it's 3 times stronger than the previous one. So we're we just hit that level where we're able to say that hemp is it's been a process, right? We have been relearning for the last 3 years how to work with hemp, and we just hit that level when we say, damn, it's really strong now. Because it was strong already, but now it's like, damn.
Sure.
Going back to your story. So it all started with me smoking some joints. It was 5 in the morning. We were all a bit drunk. It was like serendipity right there. Someone came up with the idea of making a shoe for smoking, and we were like, "Oh, that's the stupidest idea ever." But we were like, maybe we just should give it a try. Why not? And the next day, I ran into the most unlikely person ever, which is my grandmother. And I asked, "Hey, you know everything about textiles. Why don't you help me make a cannabis shoe?" So 1 week after, basically she was not very happy, and she wanted to kick me out of the house. But after 1 week, I finally managed to convince me to give it a shot. And I ordered some fabric, and I've just showed you some of the first samples we ordered, and when she looked at it, she was like, "This fabric is really interesting. It's really, it has some interesting properties." She looked and she was like, "The fibers are strong. They are just natural, which means they're a bit. Sometimes it's tough to work with natural fibers because they're a little bit. They're not like regular, right? The yarn is like sometimes weaker, stronger. So she managed to help us overcome these obstacles, and during the last 3 years, we've been investing in improving the fabric. And that the reality is, it was a bit of serendipity because we never thought hemp would be so good. Not only strong, which we already mentioned like 10 times, but also super ecological and beneficial for the environment. It's not only carbon neutral, it also sequesters a lot of CO2. Unlike, for instance, cotton that pollutes a lot, hemp requires almost no pesticides and herbicides. It requires almost no water, unlike cotton that requires a lot. And it purifies the soils. So hemp is a huge benefit for the environment. And when we were like in the first week, when we came up with the idea, we were like, "Oh, this is a funny idea. Let's do it just for fun." But then we realized, actually, this is a game changer. And I myself, I'm a vegan. I mean, I try to be as eco-friendly as possible. Have my sustainable habits. When I saw this, I was like, "This is what I'm gonna do for the next 10, 20, 50 years of my life. This is totally a game changer. I'm gonna hemp myself up, and I help other people hemp themselves up as well. So let's make shoes because that's the perfect thing to start with. Let's make the most incredible, eco-friendly, durable shoes ever made. And let's make them waterproof because I lived in London, I don't like rain." And we started with that very high ambition, and it took us 1 year of development, and we did it. Now we're going for our second model right here. Just came out of the factory. Just came to pick it up. So yeah, it was quite a journey. Then we launched a Kickstarter, and when we launched a Kickstarter, we were not expecting people to be so happy about it. We got a lot of enthusiastic people like, "Man, we love what you're doing. We're gonna back you up." We raised in total Kickstarter plus Indiegogo $350,000. So it was quite a bit of money we didn't expect, to be honest. And when we did it, we're like, we're in this to stay. And 3 years later, we've been making a lot of progress, and the sky's the limit. We are coming up with a lot of news coming soon. I just released, just announced one, but more interesting stuff coming soon.
Yeah. Thank you for announcing that here. I mean, firsthand, I would say. So Bernardo, I personally have one question, which is, if it was today, would you start? I mean, I guess that you are not from fashion. From what we know, you are not from fashion, from the fashion industry. I think it's something we share. Also, Ben was here; he's also not from fashion, and when we go to fashion, we go with another view, with a more sustainable view. And would you believe that if you are not from fashion, when you start a new fashion brand, I mean, the question is, if you start and you are not from fashion, it increases your chances of thinking in a sustainable way instead of a profitable way, if in a profitable way, because most brands, as you may know, nowadays are more on the profit side than on the sustainability side, and basically this new approach that we have been seeing with your case, with Ben's case, even in our case, which we are not from fashion, we go into, okay, let's change the status quo and start in a different way. Would you repeat by going into hemp again, or would you choose another material?
I think it's very important that I clarify something. I think profit is very important, because more important than my project winning is hemp winning. Because if we have hemp as the main material used by every footwear in the world, then everyone benefits. So if I can show everyone that it's possible to make footwear with hemp, and it's possible to make superior footwear with hemp, and if I can show it's not only better, but it's also very profitable. I mean, not very, because we're trying, but at least it's profitable. But once we imagine, like in 10 years, we show, guys, hemp is amazing. It's very durable. It's a great material. It's cheap as it once was. Now it's really expensive, like at least 10 times the cost of cotton, which is crazy. But if we show people, look, hemp is at that level where there is economies of scale. Hemp is durable, and why don't you guys use hemp? And then suddenly everyone is using hemp. We have amazing products. Everyone makes a profit, and we save the environment because, hey, look, spoiler alert, we live in a capitalistic society. So if we can prove everyone that they can make a eco-friendly product and still make money, then be my guest. But at least use hemp because it's eco-friendly. You see my point? So, and that's exactly what we're trying to do by bringing you can make eco-friendly shoes, but if they're not better than other shoes, then why is someone gonna use them? Because it's eco-friendly, right?
Okay,
How
so
can I explain my family to have better eco-friendly lifestyle if they think that I'm eating tofu and soya every day and I'm starving because I'm just vegan, so they think I'm starving. I mean, if I don't prove them that vegan food is as good or even better as normal food, they won't be motivated to change because they're afraid of starving. You see what I mean? If we don't prove
yeah,
that
sure.
eco-friendly products and eco-friendly shoes are better than Nikes and Adidas and all of the shoes out there, then we're not going to win.
Okay, that's a very great point. So no, you don't think that people would buy just for the sustainable part? They would buy for the usability and the major point on your shoes. So in this case, would you consider durability?
Not
Yeah,
only, but also,
yeah.
I think sustainability it's a great thing, but that's not going to be mainstream until we prove everyone that it's better, actually, the products.
Okay, that's nice. We actually have two questions in our chat. One is from Claudio, and I think I know why this question, and he's asking, what are the soles made of your
Okay,
shoes?
that's it's made of algae, seaweed.
Okay, algae.
Not this new
So,
model. This new model is recycled. But the model we have on our website, it's algae. And the reason we use algae is because they are super light, like lighter than your phone, like really light, really flexible. And this is something we are really, really concerned about. How can we make them super light? So we basically reach out to these guys they basically what they do is they harvest algae from really polluted bodies of water. We take they collect the algae, they dry it up, and they send us the substract, and we take this substract and we transform it into algae plastic, and we basically mold it, we dry it, we put it into a sole, we mix it in some stuff, and then suddenly we have our outsoles. And you can see in the video that I'm like doing this experiments, like bending the shoe, and it's really, really flexible.
amazing. That's I mean, so it's even also on the sustainable side with algae.
Yeah. I mean,
That's good.
the water. If not this algae, if not collected, it would basically damage the entire ecosystem and kill all the ecosystem in this body of life because it will absorb all the oxygen. So we basically decontaminating and removing the pollution from these bodies of water. We are not doing that, but we are sponsoring the company that does that, and that's our goal.
That's nice. We also have another question. Who designed the shoe? It's from Marta.
That's a good question. We have a designer in-house from the UK. Not in-house, but we work with him, and he designed the shoes and some other products that you're gonna see soon.
Okay. So you already have your designer in-house then.
Yeah.
That's one
But
that's nice.
if Marty is interested, reach out to us. If you have some crazy idea, maybe we can collab.
Okay, sure thing, sure thing. I guess that your souls are getting some attraction over here because we got two more questions on here. The first one is, can the soul be recycled?
Yes, they can. Now that's a tricky question because they have to be recycled, but it's a bit expensive and it cannot be recycled in every single. It can, very easily it can, but the main issue with recycling, and to be honest, this is something we're struggling, is how to claim back the soul. And this is because we're an online shoe company. It's very hard for us to call back the shoes and send them back to our warehouse and send it back to our facility. So that's the complicated part, but it can be recycled.
Okay,
So
okay.
we have some companies that have some interesting ideas on how can we fix this. But
Yeah.
obviously, the customers can send us their shoes and we take care of it. But mostly, it's expensive, and the issue is by reverting the cycle and sending back the shoes all the way across the planet, normally generates more CO2 and more pollution than by recycling the.
Yeah,
It's a bit tricky.
Okay, okay. Ben, who has that, maybe you guys can also get on that. He's asking if the algae souls are biodegradable.
Not 100%. Not 100%. The algae part is, but we mix it with some synthetic component, and what the synthetic component does is holds the algae together. So it's not 100%. We estimate between 80 to 85.
Okay. Okay.
So
That's,
it's more than a lot of products, but still not 100%.
Sure thing. Sure thing. I have one personal question in this case,
Sure.
which is at INSIMI, as we mentioned, we were mentioning, we are not from fashion, you are not from fashion, and in this case, your grandmother, which is your CTO in this case, she's 77 if I'm not mistaken, or she
Yeah,
started at 77. And she helped you. I mean, I've read the story. Many of us have read the story, and that she played a very important role in the beginning. And in our case, it was my mother, who she's a sewer, if that's the word, or on if I have another word for that. But she's in the fashion since ever, so she's working in fashion since ever, and she helped us a lot. If we could call it a CTO also, it would be her. My question to you is, do you consider that it would be possible for 8000 Kicks to exist without the help and the expertise of your grandmother?
Definitely not.
Definitely
That's why
not.
she's CTO. She's the one helping out developing the new products and approving them, and basically every time we have a new production, I call her in the house to check, hey, what do you think about these guys? Are they doing a good job? And she's like, this is not good. It's not good.
All right. Okay.
So
That's
she's the
definitely.
one.
So definitely a good thing to mix tradition and innovation
Yeah.
in this game. Yeah. So, Bernardo, I think I don't know if let me check the chat if there are other questions, and let me. Oh, we have Grandpa's quality control. That's what Marta is our next speaker, and she definitely has a point. The Grandma has definitely the quality control all the time.
Yeah. No, she definitely helps with quality control. So yeah, she does help a lot.
Bernardo, I am thankful for your presentation, for sharing your story with us. Keep in touch, keep here because of the roundtable. And our next speaker is Marta, and she is from Fashion Revolution. Let me try to make her a presenter. And she's from Fashion Revolution Portugal. She's a board member, and she has been in fashion on the consumer side for quite some time already. And let me see if the platform is working properly. Marta, is Marta joining us?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us and see as well?
Yes, I see everyone. I've been listening to everyone. I'll share a slide. How is this? Okay, let's see. Not found, of course. Then oh, okay. Let's
Maybe
see.
I can do something on my side if anything is needed.
Let's see. Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
not.
no, yeah,
Share screen. Let's see.
that's
How do-
webinarception.
Yeah. Okay. If I do it like this, do you see? Do you see the presentation?
No, I mean, we are not
Okay. Wait.
seeing.
I see. I think I found it. Okay.
Yeah, working properly. Maybe you can turn presentation mode. Yeah, that's
Yes. Okay. So hello everyone. Okay, now I'm not seeing anyone, but I think that's okay. My name is Marta. I'm from Fashion Revolution Portugal. Thank you so much for the opportunity you gave us to present our organization, our movement. As I see, I'm the only one native from fashion, as I have a bachelor in fashion design. But
nice
I'm
input
not.
we will give. Nice input
Yeah,
you will give.
I'm
Yeah.
not working in the industry. So I'll be presenting Fashion Revolution, the global organization, and the Portuguese team. I'll be talking about consumption and the industry today. So it's quite interesting that not anyone presenting before was aware of the reality of the industry from the fashion insiders, which is quite interesting, as you mentioned before, to go into the business without any bias. So I'll be talking about this. So Fashion Revolution. To start about it, I always talk about Rana Plaza. Rana Plaza in Bangladesh was an industrial complex that in which several fast fashion brands from the West produced their clothes. It was in terrible conditions. There was many cracks in the walls, which many workers mentioned to their managers a few days before each fall. But they were told to go back to work. And in April 24, 2013, the entire building collapsed with more than 1,000 deaths. It was nothing new in the industry, just something the whole industry was trying really hard to hide from the rest of the world, but everyone was aware. Many incidents like these happened before, many kept happening after. This one was the one with the biggest number of deaths. So also, I like to mention that at the time of Rana Plaza, when the disaster happened, no brands came forward to mention that they produced in the building. It took the authorities in Bangladesh to looking for tags among the ruins to make a list of which brands were actually producing there. They did not come forward, not because of fear, but because they did not know they were producing there. It's a matter of transparency. With the intent to never let this event be forgotten, Fashion Revolution was created in the UK, founded by Carrie Somers and Ursula de Castro in 2014, a year after the disaster. It quickly spread around the globe, with teams in more than 90 countries nowadays. So wherever you are in the world, you probably have a Fashion Revolution team close to you and doing stuff. It's like we have a guideline of our values and what we could do, what we can do, but every country is free to adapt the activities to the fashion reality in their country. So because of that, the activities we do in Portugal are very different from the ones that are developed in India or in Brazil or even in the US or Canada. The movement started around the hashtag Who Made My Clothes, asking people to photograph their favorite clothes with the tag, showing the tag and asking their favorite brands, tagging them online, who made their clothes, to demand transparency in the industry. Portugal joined the revolution in 2015 with a team of volunteers led by 𝙨𝙨𝙨𝙖𝙗𝙡𝙚, who is still our country coordinator. The Portuguese team works for the global events that happen every April. And then also we present in other events, like today I'm here with you all year round. We also organize workshops, we make talks and debates, and our most popular activity is no doubt the swap market, which is a swap in clothes activity. You can see some photos here. The bottom one is us in the European Parliament at the event in the beginning of this month, where we made a swap market with the youth in there. Also, Fashion Revolution is not one above all. We are a movement for empowering people, everyone from consumers to designers, makers, farmers, retailers, students, and teachers, everyone. So on the movement's website, you can find all kinds of resources. I invite you all to visit the website. You could find activist guides, how to get involved guides, and reports. The UK team develops amazing reports. Now with the pandemic and everything too, like the main one is the Fashion Transparency Index, but there's a lot of other stuff in there. You probably can find stuff that's interesting to you about the industry. Everything is free in PDF files, so you can always download them. Like mentioned before, the Rana Plaza disaster brought to light a reality that lived in closed doors inside the industry, known by insiders who worked hard to hide it from everyone else, and is one with extremely ethical and sustainable problems, which cannot be separated. When we talk about sustainability, we cannot talk about it without the ethical and social issues that fashion still involves today. Fashion is one of the biggest industries still associated with modern slavery, so that problem cannot be forgotten. And the connection between these two sides, the ethical and the sustainable, has an unbreakable connection, which is found in consumption. How do we consume fashion, and why do we do it so irresponsibly so often? The truth is there's more to fashion, there's more layers to it than the fashion industry wants us to see. I don't know if you've seen this before, but this is the Maslow hierarchy of needs pyramid. You can see that the base of it is the physiological needs. There's safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. Clothes, as in objects, can be found in physiological needs, as you can see. But the truth is that fashion, as in trends, as in fashionistas, as in wherever, the industry itself is actually answering to all these needs, because fashion is very connected to our idea of identity, our image of ourselves, how we present ourselves to the world, what we choose to show, what we choose to hide. And because of that, it is connected to our idea of ourselves and our idea of ourselves inside the community. So it is simultaneously individual and simultaneously collective. So it answers all needs in the pyramid, which means that we create fashion. Consumers choose fashion, which we don't buy a full collection of a brand. We choose stuff, we pair it with other stuff. We are the ones creating trends, and the industry doesn't want you to see that or believe that. Because of that, fashion plays with senses of pleasure, like belonging, being loved, being praised for your outfit, and also fear of not belonging, of being excluded, hated on, which could lead, which is a beginning of a path for possible addiction. There's very serious problems, especially now that lots of people went to buying online. Addiction has become a real problem on the shopping spree, right? But dopamine and everything associated with that, and brands play with that. We don't see it, but they play with that. The way they advertise, the marketing connected to it, they play with it. And again, because fashion is so connected to our idea of ourselves and our idea of ourselves inside the group, inside our society, it is extremely political. Today I choose to bring you Alok. Alok is a trans activist, and they are very strong on the gendering fashion. Why do we get clothes sold to us by men and women separate collections when we consumers are the ones who have a gender? Gender is a social construct, so not our clothes. Clothes are objects we choose, tools we choose to express ourselves. They have no gender. And in here, and women know that more than anyone, clothes and how you choose to portray yourself in the public space is very political. Don't let the industry tell you otherwise. And so the need for clothes that last isn't just ethical or environmental, it's also for our own sake in the search of our identity. What we already own, what's in our closet, is a great place to start. To take care of our clothes attentively, to know how to wash them, to know how to mend them, transform them when we don't like them anymore or they don't fit our ever-evolving style, or when we don't have the skills. It's not mandatory to know how to sew, to swap them with some friends, with a bigger group if it's available. And also when we buy new, because sometimes we have to buy new, we have people coming to our events saying, oh, it's so hard to find jeans secondhand, it's so hard to find shoes, for example, secondhand, or it's underwear. Underwear is a huge fault in the sustainable brands business. But you buy, okay, you need to go to fast fashion, especially larger sizes find a lot of hard times shopping, but we need to go to fast fashion. Okay, go, but make your research, choose the materials, what fits better. Like if you buy silk underwear or how do I say, lace underwear, can you wash it by hand? Do you have time in your routine to wash it by hand? Stuff like that. Like consider your habits, your routine when buying. Do so consciously. And by now, I want to bring you another example. When because we are a team of mainly women in Fashion Revolution, and fashion is always more associated with women, and especially fashionistas. When you hear the phrase like, oh, look at that, that's such an extreme outfit, I could never pull it off. I like, especially some vintage stuff or some crazy ass artists as they're going in the red carpet now. We think that pulling off a cool outfit is based on trends, right? But it's not. It's mainly based on confidence. And confidence comes from, I believe, mainly from comfort. And when I talk about comfort, I'm talking about two types of it: physical comfort and emotional comfort. Physical comfort comes from the materials. For example, soft materials, good quality materials, but also, for example, if it's a hot, humid day, polyester shirt might not be the best decision. A nice, fresh cotton shirt will be much better, right? But if it's cold outside, then maybe an acrylic sweater or something plastic-based might keep you warmer. So that's the kind of physical comfort. But when I'm talking about emotional comfort, I mean memories. I've made this experiment before and asked people what was their favorite garment, and they always mention something extremely old. Sometimes something that's not even holding up anymore, but they still keep it. They wear it when they're feeling down or when they need an extra push for a hard day. So that's the comfort of memories that are associated with the garment. With how fast the fashion industry is working nowadays, the constant need for new season, no more, we're out of season, that's not good. No one has time to make memories with their clothes, so they gain no emotional value. They're not worth mending, they're not worth swapping even. And the fabric quality on the physical side of comfort, the fabric quality is very lacking. Much of what we wear is not physically comfortable or even healthy for our skin and our body, but that's another conversation. But with these, I bring you to the industry today. So during the end of last century, especially during the 90s, production moved to some countries in Asia, mainly China, but others too, and the cost got lower. It was the so-proclaimed and even very celebrated democratization of fashion. Everyone could wear high fashion outfits. Everyone was happy about it. But since then, it has been all about growth, and more growth, and it didn't stop. And growth brought overproduction. And what does it mean? It means more and more clothes in a faster and faster pace, and cheaper cost. We are producing over 100 billion garments per year, which is extremely scary for me, from which 60% of them are made of plastic fibers. And this production exceeds demand by 20 to 25%. We know some brands are destroying stock. We've seen it if you follow Diet Prada, which I totally recommend. We've been seeing Chloe is under fire because they destroy bags and stuff like that, but they're not the first. And we know some brands even burn their goods because it's cheaper to burn than make it circular. Like Ben was saying, big brands have a hard time doing this. And on the other hand, the second-hand business is becoming more and more problematic and toxic in countries in Africa. And what does it all make? It makes that the consumers, they might be slow, but they're not dumb. And sustainability is gaining more and more traction. So we see a lot of it where? In marketing. All the effort brands could be putting in making their production more and more sustainable, they are instead putting it into marketing techniques, what could be called greenwashing. Brands are committed on making you believe they're green or making you believe you're choosing a sustainable option, when in fact they're making empty promises. They're talking about what they plan to do, but never what they're doing. Their discourse is vague and filled with buzzwords like green, environment, nature, sustainable, and they put the responsibility on the consumer. They tend to focus a lot on one small greener detail, and that's it. For example, I always mention recycled cotton. Oh, this line of recycled cotton is so good, blah, blah, blah. But recycled cotton can never be 100% recycled cotton. Cotton has no strength to be 100% recycled. There's always virgin cotton in there. And what does it matter if it's still made in sweatshops? So yeah, be aware, be skeptical, and always think about this. Especially, for example, this H&M line, conscious points. What? Yeah. So, and with this, I finish with the question we'll be talking about in the roundtable. Is sustainable fashion the new standard? And my answer is yes, but not really. And I'll leave you a clue from Slow Factory Foundation, an association with free education. I advise everyone to go and follow them. They do an amazing work on sustainability, racism, colonization. They teach a lot for free. And they say sustainability is a spectrum and it's nothing new. So with this, I finish my presentation.
Oh, great presentation, Marta. Thank you all.
Thank you.
For the presentation. As you be seeing, we got some questions. Some questions were questioned on our Instagram, and some people could be here, some other could not be here. My first question regarding this, as you are the only one, this is not coming from our attendees, it's coming from here, from our team. As you are until now the only one from the fashion industry of the speakers, do you believe that to change in a faster way we need more people outside of fashion to go into fashion, or do we need to better improve the sustainability part on the fashion curriculum in schools, maybe include sustainability from a young age in schools, regarding not even just from fashion, food, all the topics, but on the sustainability? Or how do you believe that we can speed up this green transition?
Actually, I agree with you that we need, for example, I'll make a quick example. The microplastics problem in plastic fibers. That's a fashion making filters, for example. That's just an example. So I do believe that sustainability is a wide, and I don't think you see me, it's a wide problem in all industries, and I don't think you can solve one problem at a time. I think we have to come together from all sides, and I like to see, I don't think, like you mentioned, I made it, where did I go? I don't think that it's a matter of from inside fashion or outside fashion. I do think that in Fashion Revolution, we have seen lots of projects come and go because they're a one-person project and they never work. I think people need to think in groups and from different areas so that they can, like, I like to work with someone who's not from fashion because they will have a completely different mindset and point of view. And that will, I have faults, they have faults, but our faults come together and we make a bigger plan, better plans. So I do think that not, because also I tend to believe that brands, not the case today, but brands who come from outside the fashion industry sometimes lack the design part, and sustainable brands are associated with the greener image or style, like a minimalistic design, stuff like that, that it's not good, because I feel like it's not a style, it's not a trend, it's something that all brands, no matter if they associated themselves with the greener, sustainable marketing, I would say, should adapt. We need designers to come together with engineers, with management, to make a visually interesting product that are actually sustainable. So it should not be a trend. It should not be category in, when you look for brands, you have the sustainable category. No, all of them should mandatorily be sustainable from the root.
Yeah. You as being a member on Fashion Revolution, you definitely, who made your clothes is it's a very important thing. I guess that all brands here produce in Portugal, that are presented in here, produce in Portugal, and in Portugal we have a very interesting case. Since most of the fashion industry is located in a small region, and it also makes the carbon footprint lower in this case. My question here is, do you think that it's on the brands, or even, obviously this could be a biased question, so not to bias any question, but how much do you think that the fabricants themselves, as you may know, a brand that it's not from fashion, for example, goes to the partners, and their partners will have a very, very big impact on the product creation. So do you believe that they have a very big impact, and that they should be the ones also leading on this transition? Or should we continue to leave it to the consumers and to the ones who continue on pursuing the brands?
Okay, so not at all. Consumers should not. When Fashion Revolution started, we started targeting consumers in a way to empower them and see them that they could make choices, and they could ask brands, because people felt that they don't have power when they're actually we say that voting with your money. When you buy, you're voting with your money. So we started from there. But as things evolved, and Fashion Revolution started in 2014, so it's been quite some time already, we started, I don't want to use the word attack, but yeah, we're targeting brands to make them, especially fast fashion brands, not the small business, but also to be more transparent. They have the big money, so they have the power to make big changes. But not just that. I didn't go much over the supply chain because I didn't really have the time. But brands are also consumers. They consume supplies, right? So ask your suppliers where stuff is coming from, because yes, Portugal has an amazing fashion production industry, but a lot of like the made in is very vague. Made in tag means nothing. It could be produced in Portugal, but the materials are made where? Out
Exactly.
of what? And we supply a lot from out of EU. So out of EU means it doesn't apply our laws. So when we buy, like maybe we have legislation about dyes, for example, dyes, the color that dyes the fabrics. There's a lot of chemicals in that there's a very strict regulation in the EU, right? But when we import textiles from outside the EU, the legislation does not apply. So the tag says made in Portugal, but the fabric is not from here. And even like I know a lot of I crochet, I do
Yeah,
knitwear.
crochet. Yeah, I think it's
So
crochet. I think it's
so I buy a lot of yarn from here, and there's a lot of brands that produce here, but they are dying brands. I've been trying to reach to them to know, okay, where's your wool coming from? Where's your acrylic coming from? And they don't answer. Like
yeah.
so the transparency is not just for the customers. When I say that the brands did not know who was producing in Bangladesh, they did not know. They employed someone to hire the cheaper fab factory, and the factory had to lower and lower and lower their price so they could still have that job that that company is still buying from them, but maybe they outsourced. Maybe they
Yeah.
outsourced to someone who was employing children. We don't know. They don't know. So that's the transparency we demand, is not just for the consumer, the final consumer, is also inside brands. Know your stuff. When we ask brands to have information online about where they're producing, where the factories are, and all of that, it's not just so the consumers know, it's that we know that you know too, and you can take responsibility if something is happening.
Yeah, definitely. We believe on that, also on the transparency, and there are some ways. I mean, on our side, on our view, there are some ways on doing on that. Do you believe that, for example, the global organic standard, the GOTS standard, can help on increasing this transparency, this traceability of the materials, or do you believe that it's just another standard that it's coming and fading away for another one after it?
I've learned recently that you can apply and pay for those standards. So my opinion, I haven't read much about it other than that, but my opinion is very clear on that. I don't think it should be the only one, because the access to that by small brands is very hard. So a big company could actually apply to that and pay for it. I've heard about it in the cosmetic industry too, the green cosmetics and the products for the jars and stuff like that. And I heard it's starting to be a problem industry-wise. So does it really work, or does it create more problems? As when things are so gray, I think it's time to rethink them. Okay, so what is this doing? Who is taking profit from this? So yeah, I don't totally agree on that.
Okay, that's a very good point. Another point, it's on the recyclability of the materials. We have seen two brands before that focus on having materials that can be recycled, biodegradable, some circularity on their models, and you target the very important topic, which is the recyclability of cotton, for example, which we also know it. It's not quite possible to recycle it totally. So and if you go to those shops, normally, I mean, fast fashion shops at the moment, many of them, the most targeted thing is the recycled. Hey, this is recycled. This is recycled. So do you believe that's purely brainwashing, greenwashing in this case?
Yeah. Recycling is being one of the most used buzzwords in greenwashing, and recycling in fashion I believe that shoes might be a different, might have a different point of view, because the shoe industry has a completely set of designs, and the rest of the fashion industry. The engineering behind shoes is a lot of different and requires the materials, the durability, and everything is very different. So it might not apply. But as in fashion, like big brands, Inditex, H&M, all of that, they even have boxes for people to leave their problem waste that they don't know what else to do, right? And they give you a coupon for the next time you come shopping. So that's, I'm sorry, but bullshit. There's no such thing. There's no technology for recycled textile. And let me explain. It's a fiber can only be recycled if it's up to 97% of it. Or if it's 90%, 7 and 3% polyester, they can dissolve the polyester and recycle the cotton. But if it's lower than that, it's impossible. There's no technology to separate. And more than 60% of our clothes is mixed fibers.
Yeah.
So all of they could recycle the 100% cotton t-shirts, and most of it is recycled. But anything else, it could be downcycled, which they never, like, my problem with those boxes is there's no transparency on what happens after. Like, okay, you say we're recycling, but we know you can't recycle everything. What do you do to the rest? What is happening to the rest? So part of it goes on a downcycling, which means it will create foam to walls or cars or sofas, whatever. Or it will end up in landfills in Africa. That's what happens a lot.
Yeah, I
So
mean, we have seen some videos recently on that.
Yeah. Cantamento is a huge problem, and landfills in Africa it's getting out of hand. And they're trying to make a big deal out of it. Oh my God, the trash of one is the treasure of another. No, we're way past that. We're way past that. But yeah, the fashion industry. I think we created some good synergy when we use PET for making, like, we recycle. It's the interconnection between industries that I think it could work. Like, we get a problem from one industry, this one takes care of it and makes something new. But the matter of what sometimes is recycled is not recyclable. So that's another point that the industry doesn't talk about. So when we create textile fabric from PET, it's not necessarily recyclable again. But yeah, in terms of textiles, some synthetic fibers can be recycled, but only, and cotton too, wool too, but again, no mixed fibers. So when you buy something, if you want to be responsible, check the tag, see the percentages, and if it is up to 97%, then it will work. If it's not, there's no end to that piece.
Yeah, sure thing. I guess that Karina also has one question regarding for you, and we also have one in the chat.
Her question for our team would be if COVID have accelerated this process of large companies to become a little more greener in that way, or how it affects the fashion industry in a bigger way.
To start, I think there's no way to make fast fashion greener. The only way is if they reduced. We need the growth now. So fast fashion can never be green. How it can affect the fashion industry? Many ways. I don't think, for us, the end consumer, it wouldn't affect as much as in the industry itself. But I've seen some interesting stuff going on. For example, some brands are choosing to drop the seasons and do pre-order stuff, which is it's better for everyone. It's better for the customer because they get a sense of a more exclusive line. It's better for the brands because they can calculate how many clothes they'll need to have. There's no extra, there's no amount of supplies that will last forever in a company. So there's other ways. That's why it's good to have people from outside fashion, like non-fashion natives, to think these business models differently, because when I was studying, and I'm majoring in cultural management, and I'm having this hard time in college where people are teaching us the same models as 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I need to learn something new. We need to do something different. This is not working. So we do need a synergy of different people from different backgrounds to put together and bring these ideas. And I've been, for example, I accompanied one of my friends who has a small fashion brand, and she's shifting from the summer. Instead of going into winter, she's doing small releases to try it out, and it's being a huge success. And for her it's even better because she's only ordering X amount of orders. So yes, I think that a few years ago there was another shift from runaway, because the runaway shows, I don't know if you know it, but the runaway shows, they would go like a full year before they went to store, and some brands are already making runaway shows direct to store. So that also changes a lot on the pace of the industry. And on another completely different side, I think that it's not yours because you're not inside the industry, but for example, a few years ago, one of the major brands, Dior, had a designer leave his job only after a year of being in the place, because he said he could not handle 40 collections a year. There was no time to be creative. And that's like, even on these fashionista brands, like I say, that's impossible. And I feel like a lot is lacking sometimes on the sustainable brands because they lack the creative fashionista side, but also in these big brands they're lacking the design thinking. Let's stop talking about design as in trends. Let's do design thinking as in, okay, how can I make this piece transformable? Like this will give me several looks. The customer will not get tired of it and want to buy 10,000 of it. So I think both sides need each other. And not just marketing wise. Please work on your pieces and our materials and everything.
That's great answer. Just one last question here from Claudio. Also, Madalena agrees with you. I don't know if you saw on the chat. Madalena agrees with you. We also agree with you. Claudio has one question regarding these, as you just mentioned, different industries may be solution to increasing the sustainability. And in this case, can recycled cotton be used for other applications with lower quality standards? What's your viewpoint on that?
Yes, that's what I was calling downcycling. So when we talk about recycling in fashion and in other industries, we have two options. Upcycling gives more value to the piece you're recycling, and downcycling takes value from it, makes it poorer, for example, a poorer material. In Fashion Revolution, because we do believe that clothes have a lot of value that is not financially sometimes measurable, we don't like downcycling. We prefer upcycling. That's a lot of brands already working on it. So we prefer when clothes are upcycled. But there is, if it had to be a solution instead of the landfill, of course. But the problem with that is that there's excess materials to be downcycled. Of course, cotton shouldn't be downcycled because it's actually biodegradable. So it's not a problem. Plastic fibers would be a problem they're not biodegradable, so they would need to be downcycled. Even in that matter, even if cotton is biodegradable, and I think it's important to mention that for any biodegradable fibers, when they are inked, when they are dyed, that could be a problem. They could not be just dropped somewhere because the dyeing has chemicals too. If your shirt has a print, there's chemicals too. So it's way more complex than that. But I don't think the cotton is way too valuable to be downcycled. So yes, it could, but it shouldn't.
Yeah, great answers, great questions. Thank you. Now we are heading for the second part of this event. We just found out a limitation of this platform, which means that we can only have 4 people. So we will have some dynamics over here. And to start training our dynamics, we will start with our very quick energizer, just for us to smile a bit. And we will start with you, Marta. And Marta, I want all the presents, also Gilles and Karina in here. We will be showing how to do this. And so just to warm up and to move a bit, since we are all seated during most of our days, we still can move our upper part. And this is a very simple exercise, and we will be doing based on the Squid Game, which is very known at the moment. It's a trend at the moment. We will be doing.
I must be the only person on Earth who hasn't watched it.
No problem. No problem. No problem. This is very easy to do. So all I'm asking is you have two fingers up, and so place 2 fingers up, and now place the fingers like this. And let's start by doing a triangle with our fingers. And easy, right? Now let's do a square with our fingers. And now let's do a triangle and a square with each finger. So one finger does a triangle, the other one does a square. I guess this is very difficult to do, but I guess that's the fun of it. Very easy to do, and just to warm up a bit. And before, just without any further, I will take Karina and Gilles because I need to moderate this, and I will include Miguel. And just also, Miguel has decades of experience with international development, finance, innovation, and sustainability. And I mean, he worked at World Bank, he worked in Latin America, Southeast America, he worked globally, very always related with sustainable projects. Just a moment while I take Gilles and Karina out and include Miguel. Let me try not to make any mistake here. And while I include Miguel. And yeah, Miguel just came from a conference for the Sustainability Awards at the Financial Times, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me, Miguel, if I'm mistaken. I guess it is working, no? And Miguel, can you hear us? Hi.
I'm doing triangles.
Yeah. Yes, that's it's now on you. Now you can try it out also, like the squares and the triangles. And yeah, as I was presenting, Miguel, I think I'm not mistaken, you just came from the Sustainability Awards on the Financial Times, I think. Yes. And we, as I mentioned, we just discovered this limitation at the moment on the platform, but it won't be a problem. I will try to make it very dynamically. And Miguel will be moderating our roundtable to answer the question and to further develop on the question: is sustainable fashion the new standard? Marta already gave an hint over here. And I will be adding and removing Marta and Bernardo and Ben. Forgive me if it will not be the best way. Miguel, I will leave you to give some introductory words while I'll do these dynamics. And welcome, and thank you for being here, most of it, and for your effort. And let me see if this is working. Okay, so yeah, this really has this limitation. I think I added Ben.
We have Ben.
Yeah, we have Ben. Yeah, Ben, can you hear us?
Ben.
I can hear you, I can see you.
Yeah, nice one. Nice one.
Perfect. To kick it off, I'm sorry I'm only joining now. As you said, I was in the judges meeting for the IFC, the Financial Times IFC Transformational Business Awards. Great entries there. You can see the award winners are going to be announced next Tuesday. It's going to be a virtual event, so you can all join if you have the availability. The first thing I wanted to say is a big thank you to Emmanuel and to Gilles for inviting me to be here. I've talked very briefly to both Marta, Ben, and Bernardo, and I'm really looking forward to the next 45 minutes. My only concern is that 45 minutes are not going to be enough, so maybe we need to have a part 2 or part 3 of this discussion. And before diving into sustainability and fashion, Marta, don't worry, I haven't seen Squid Game either, so you're not alone. Maybe this weekend. I mean, we're not here to talk about me, but I want to give you a little bit of background about what I've done. I started working in sustainability in 2000. I was with the International Finance Corporation at the time, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. When I moved into doing the first project in sustainability, and it was specifically to financial markets, most of my colleagues, including my bosses, told me that I could be killing my career because I was moving from an hardcore investment stream into hugging trees. And literally, this is what I was told. Several decades later, I think it was the best career decision I've taken, it is great to live in a world that's okay. We have a bunch of challenges. We have challenges that we've never faced as humankind. But it's good to see that we live in a world where these things are being talked about, even though I feel that we started too late and we are still not doing enough. But it's also good when I look at the screen and see this young generation of people that are talking much more actively and much more openly about these things than I did at your age. So kudos to you. And in terms of fashion, I mean, I did a little bit of everything everywhere in different regions, from energy to agri value chains, but I was also involved several years ago in what were the initial discussions of the standards from the Better Cotton Initiative. And that took me to particularly Asia, South Asia and Southeast Asia. And we'll get a little bit more into that. But as a kickoff, feel free, because I just joined, feel free to stop me if I'm repeating something that you have already said. But I mean, if one looks at the fashion industry, we are talking about $2.5 trillion a year. It's a huge industry. It employs 75 million people worldwide, right? And it has enjoyed spectacular growth. And if you look between 2000 and 2014, production of clothing has doubled in 4 years, right? So normally, and before sustainability became a thing, when we talked about growth, we were like, yay, we're so glad that this is happening, growing. I mean, when you double clothing production in 14 years, this cannot be a good thing. And we need to redefine growth, because we also know that growth has to do with a bunch of impacts, particularly environmental and social impacts that are not necessarily good impacts. We are not measuring them, and they are not profits, they are costs. So we need to take this into consideration. I joined in time to hear part of Marta's Q&A, and you were talking about fast fashion. So, I mean, fashion in general, but fast fashion in particular. And, I warned some of you that I can be politically incorrect. So I would also argue that, right? And I would also argue that, top-notch luxury fashion also has a similar time of impact. But I mean, if we look at the impacts, the environmental and social impacts, they are huge. I mean, from a pollution standpoint, fashion is the third most polluting sector that we have in the world, and it comes after energy, of course, and transport. It ranks above agriculture, which is something that we need on our daily basis to feed ourselves, right, and to have access to potable water. The impact, speaking of water, the impacts on water use are immense. Carbon emissions skyrocketing through the roof. Not to mention, and Marta alluded to that, things related to human rights, gender inequality, they are not decreasing. They are actually increasing. So we know that we need to do an urgent shift towards sustainable fashion. It's more than urgent. We need to do it. We need to do it yesterday, right? But on the other side, it's also one of those sectors that it's not enough to point the finger to the producers and to the entire value chain upstream. You know, we also need to be aware, and we cannot be in denial. We need to be aware that we also need to point the fingers at ourselves, right? Because we are the consumers. And a lot of what is happening because we're buying it. But what we are also seeing, and it's a lot more on the younger generation, like we have here on the screen, is that we're also seeing the rise of the conscious consumer, right? I mean, you guys are a lot more empowered by data, converting that data into information, and you know, we're all starting to put pressure on brands as we should be doing, right? So with that, I had one question for the three of you, if I may. So for Marta, Ben, and Bernardo. Sustainability is a big word. It has been said, I don't agree with this, but it has been said that one of the reasons why sustainability wasn't implemented faster, it's because it's a very big, a very fluffy words, and it doesn't say anything in particular. So one of the things I would like to ask the three of you from the get-go, so that, you know, we kind of have our limits on the conversation, is what is sustainability for you, and how do you think it's going to affect the future of fashion? And I'll let you go, the three of you. I'll let you go in the order that you prefer. I think maybe Bernardo will.
I want to go last. So if you want to put Bernardo, you can add him and take me out first.
Sure, I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, I guess while they're swapping over, I'll start then. So to me, what is sustainability? To be honest, I think it's just a load of horseshit. I think it's a buzzword that people are really taking advantage of at the moment. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be responsible and be conscious of our consumption and things like this, but if you look back in history, the sustainable development was defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So what the hell does that even mean, right? Does it mean that we use less plastic? Does it mean that we, ship things across the ocean instead of flying it? Does it mean that we stop eating meat? Which I don't believe is absolutely necessarily true for any of those things. It really depends on how you view it. So, for example, people would be like, "Oh, you're so irresponsible if you're flying your products around the world." And this is one thing I had a small conversation with Miguel about. Is like, okay, that's okay. We all know that flying is it's not the best way to transport goods. Of course, train is the best way, but when you're dealing with a global customer base, I can't train my things from Europe to Australia. So we all know that we can offset emissions, whether or not that's an actual thing as well, because I know there's a lot of offsetting companies that actually fertilize your plants so they grow bigger, so you feel better about doing it. And we're still producing a lot of chemicals to do that, using a lot of water. So is that sustainable in itself? Probably not. But in regards to this shipping thing, like we could fly things around the world, we can offset it, but how much trees do we have to plant to replace the whale and the dolphin populations that get disrupted, and their migrations get disrupted because we're shipping so much? How many trees does that take? So if we take it back to that first definition of sustainability, so while you might not like the fact that we fly stuff, how many whales do we take away from future generations to witness in the wild? So sustainability is such an ambiguous term, and it means so much to everyone else that I think it's just an absolute buzzword. That's all it is. Not saying that we shouldn't do the best to reduce our impacts and reduce pollution and reduce consumption, but as a term, I don't think it really holds up if you really know what really happens and what you're thinking about. So
Yeah,
is my 2 cents.
yeah, thank you, Ben. And it's exactly because of your answer that I wanted to use this as the kickoff question. Exactly because it means different things to different people. I remember at a point in time I was kind of trying to play with the different words for sustainability, and the first one that came to mind was respect. And the answer that I got at the time when I floated that with different people was that, oh, that's not a business word. So maybe what we need to reinvent our businesses. And I know that before I joined, you guys were talking about different business models, but we'll get to that later. So thank you, Ben. And Bernardo, we have you, I see you on screen. Can I ask you exactly the same question? What is sustainability to you and how it will affect the future of fashion?
Sure. I'll start by quoting Ben on this. I think sustainability, I mean, the definition is to manufacture today, do things today without compromising the future. So, yeah, but what exactly does it mean? In my opinion, that our own KPIs in terms of making products is carbon footprint. That's probably the #1 sustainability KPI we follow. And we know all the, I mean, we know the shoes, the rest of the products we launched, we're still calculating. It's a really complicated process, but we are working on this. And for us, this is the #1 step on sustainability, because, you know, for instance, our heads that I have right here, we are calculating the footprint of this head, but each product, each head is different. The supply is different, and we basically need to calculate the impact in terms of shipping, manufacturing, the raw materials, which we know are pretty neutral in terms of manufacturing, which is because it's hemp. So basically, for us, it's all about carbon footprint. It's also good to manufacture. For us, it's very important to be vegan, but it's not as important as having as low as possible carbon footprint. It's also important for us to have as least plastic as possible and to be biodegradable as possible. Our hats are biodegradable, but it's not as important for us as being carbon footprint. Having a low carbon footprint. This is for us. This is the #1 thing that we look for on our own products. I know that some of other brands focus on other metrics, but we are very focused on this thing, and it takes us a long time to calculate our carbon footprint, and for us, we have to engineer the product again and again and again. Like yes, like Ben was saying, instead of shipping by air, we ship by ocean. Instead of shipping by ocean, sometimes we ship by train. Ocean is actually, I disagree with Ben. Ocean is the most friendly way to ship things because of the amount of units they carry and the low power that they use. So yeah, but for us, it's all about carbon footprint. I guess that's my takeaway, carbon footprint.
No, thank you, Bernardo. So, I mean, you mentioned something that I'm going to bring back, but first we want to hear from Marta, but I'm going to bring back which has to do the value chains, but I'm going to bring that back later. Marta, I know you're multitasking there. I saw you multitasking there.
Gotta keep my hands busy.
So same question to you. I mean,
I'm gonna
sustainability bullshit or something else, or what's your take?
I'm gonna follow up a little bit of what Ben said and connected to what Bernardo said too. Yeah, sustainability is a new word for something so old, but so old that we needed a pretty word to put it, because like we aim for sustainability now because what we're doing, the bullshit that came from the 80s to the 90s and escalated to the huge problem we have now, that's what we were doing wrong. The sustainability is the rightness that was before. So it's nothing new. It's nothing new. And for sure, it's not something you can purchase. It's not something you can buy. I think which we try, because again, when I say consumers, I mean the final consumer, but also the brands as consumers of materials, fabric, whatever. The world is not black and white. There's no right answers in sustainability. I don't think plastic is the enemy, because what is plastic? Plastic is something that will never go away, right? What does it mean? It means it's durable. We want to make clothes that last. Sometimes plastic might be the answer, right? But again, for example, leather. If we're gonna, okay, leather is terrible if we're using crocodiles that we're killing for their skin. That makes no sense. But if it's pork leather that's used from the meat industry, it's a waste that we're taking for the fashion industry and giving it an upcycle, right? It's something that was going to be dumped and we're giving it more value. It's not a problem. It should not be a problem or seen as one. And also there's communities like in extremely cold communities, we talk about killing animals as a problem, but sometimes we forget that there's still indigenous people going around and they still live from that in a very sustainable way, as we say it, not them, because for them it's just normal, right? So I wish we could bring that normal. We need sustainability to be our normal, not the trend in the sidebar where we choose our brands. So I think this is the key here to answer your question is sustainability is being conscious of the choices you're making, to know your product, to know to teach your consumer how to make your product last, and to be responsible for it until the end of its life, until it disappears from the earth. For me, that's the approach that brands should have on sustainability. You're creating something that sometimes will outlive you, so be responsible for it until it disappears.
Okay, Marta, thank you. Know your product. That made me think of what Bernardo mentioned before in terms of the supply chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the many takeaways that we got from COVID-19 is that supply chains can be very fragile and they are very easily disruptible. I mean, we've all seen and read news about what's happening all over the world in terms of, goods not reaching their final destination in time. Just last week, there were lines at petrol stations in the UK because on top of disrupted supply chains, there was also Brexit involved. So on that, I wanted to go to Bernardo and then to Ben, because you guys have two different value chains, right? Bernardo's is it's more decentralized, right? It spans from Portugal and Europe into emerging markets on the other side of the world. While in the case of Ben, it's much more centralized. It still spans out of a single country, but at least it is within the European space. So have you felt these types of disruptions either because of COVID or because of other inefficiencies in the system?
You want me to start, right?
I'm sorry?
Or Ben? You want me to start
No,
or should
yeah,
I start?
please. Just I
You know
didn't
what?
hear the whole question as I was becoming a host, so please go ahead, Bernardo.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, we felt it a lot. It's crazy. We were like punched in the face left and right by COVID. We were like, damn, we didn't even know where to go. So we manufacture in Portugal and China. And I'm gonna tell you the summary of my last 2 years, so you can laugh with me. So, in 2020, we got hit by COVID, as everyone knows. We were manufacturing in Portugal. Suddenly, all the factories in Portugal closed down, and we're like, oh, damn. So all the factories closed down in Portugal. So we were like in huge trouble because we can't finish a production round that we started. So we were like, okay, this cannot happen. So let's do a production round in another country. So we were like, we visit these factories all around the world, and we found this factory in China, which was like top-notch factory. It's like they make really high-end shoes, and we like applied, and suddenly we did some lobbying with a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy, and he said, Bernardo, you're in. I was super happy. We got to manufacture with them, and suddenly, guess what? Factories closed down in China. I mean, and it's not just like oh, factories reopen and then production starts. You need all the 100 components that we use in our shoes to restart. We need everything to be done, otherwise we cannot get shoes done. And suddenly we have no shoes from anywhere. and then slowly our factory in Portugal reopens in summer. So we sold out in February out of shoes because we couldn't manufacture, and sales was going pretty well. So we ran out of shoes, and we couldn't get another production round in Portugal until the summer. And then production problems. Many factories that we have were still not supplying or making hemp masks instead of shoes because it was much more profitable. So we started making shoes in Asia, and we only started selling the shoes in September. So it's early January 2020. We got hit by COVID, and we did 2 production rounds in 1 year. And we're like, wow, this is crazy. We cannot even make shoes now. So I mean, and now we basically things in Portugal are still a bit complicated, but we already ramping up on our new production, finishing it up. But now it's a problem that we have many of our sources are from in terms of hemp come from Asia, not only China but mostly China. And the thing is to bring this China as by far, and look, we source hemp from everywhere, and the best hemp is in China because they do it for at least twice as long as everyone else, and they have the scale and the variety. And when we try to order hemp from China, it comes via a container in the ocean. It takes 3 months to arrive. It basically everything derails. You're expecting 1 month and you pay a premium to come in a fastest boat, and suddenly it takes 3 months instead of 1, and suddenly you don't produce in the summer anymore. You're like, it's like it's almost winter. So it's like everything derails. The prices go crazy. We're holding our prices, but our costs of manufacturing have increased at least 50%. So we're like, this is crazy, man. I to be honest, it's just a startup, and we're like, I think if we survive this thing, we can do pretty well without any of these problems. So this is me. Insane, man. It's the only word that I have for it. It's insane.
Exactly, because it's not like you can replace that main raw material that you use from a different country or local production. It's not like you.
Yeah, we have sources in Romania, in the Netherlands, in Lithuania, but it's not like you come up and look. We've been developing hemp for the last 3 years. Not you come to a new supplier and say, hey, what's up? Can you make this? And they're like, bro, how do you make this? How do you make this? It's like, bro, you have to do this, and that. And yeah, but it takes time to develop. I mean,
no, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you, Bernardo. So Ben, what's your experience? Your supply chain is very different. So what was your experience during this difficult period of time?
Okay, so with the same as Bernardo, we have production booked in, and then of course this, pandemic come and sort of blew things out of the water a little bit. And just as with Bernardo, once the factories were still a little bit in operational, they want to focus on doing the mask. That's the trend that everyone was jumping on in order to cash out on it. So I totally understand that because a lot of factories were struggling to keep up with their expenses, and if they're not doing anything, they're not paying their employees, they can't keep the lights on. So yeah, I don't blame them for that at all. I respect the fact that people still need to put food on the table. But of course, as a consumer of their labor or their materials, of course it's very upsetting for me because I've got product that need to be produced. So although we still had a very local supply chain, we were obviously having problems because no one was working. But now things are back open. We just finished our Kickstarter campaign, so now we're finally able to start production, and things are going relatively smooth for the time being. But unlike Bernardo, we're sourcing all our materials relatively close. We're using repurposed ocean plastic that's sourced in the Mediterranean and processed in Spain. And then in Portugal, we're using recycled fibers and of course the recycled rubber from our rubber suppliers there. But the fact that we have chosen to produce in Europe means that it's more expensive than getting things done in China. And having spoken to some potential retailers and distributors, of course, price is always an issue. If I wanted to get my things produced in Asia, yeah, of course I could get it done for a few dollars, maybe 10, 15 euros. But due to the principles that we have, in terms of strengthening Portugal, especially promoting the footwear production there, bringing, keeping jobs out of Asia and keeping them relatively local, all these things cost money. But this is, part of what our mission is to, strengthen local, producers, suppliers, and by also, using these recycled materials that cost, more than the standard, cotton or the standard polyester, because these things need to be, repurposed and they need to be, processed more. I think it's our hope that, we can prove that this product is, innovative in the way that we are, helping to rethink waste and, kind of inspire other people to consider recycled or repurposed materials rather than just always going for new. So.
Yeah, I mean, the big advantage, or one of the advantages of recycling waste is that, unfortunately, waste knows no boundaries and it is everywhere, right?
Exactly.
I mean, which, it's a sad thing to say, but it's also the reality. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ben. I'm now going to Marta. I'm staying with value chain, but I'm going to introduce a twist here. Sorry for that.
No, I have something I want to say, but please do.
Yeah. No, because I also saw that you have a question for Bernardo.
Oh, I have a question for Bernardo, but before that, I want to say that I sympathize a lot with small brands. And when I finished, I entered college in 2013, so when the Renaissance fell down, and I wanted to be a designer for H&M because I love the idea of everyone wearing clothes designed by me. Little did I know that while I was in college, I learned a lot. I had some good teachers, others not so good, but I learned about Fashion Revolution and I joined the team. And one thing, when I left college, I had this huge crisis. Like, I'm anti-capitalistic. How do I sell stuff to people? I'm now studying culture because I cannot have a brand. It's against my principles. But what I want to say is I sympathize with all of you because fast fashion totally changed the way people thought about money and about value. Because I do think that's one of our biggest problems today, and your problems too. When you talk about costs and about price, we cannot stop thinking about value. Because the fact that you produce in Europe has should have more value than something that it's produced so far away in cheaper and worse conditions. And value sometimes cannot be translated into money. But this is a very hard conversation to have with the generic public because they want cheaper, 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 cheaper because they're used to cheap, right? So I do think, in my perspective and in my future, I see something connected to that. I do believe that the key to solve this is a generation problem, and it will take a long time, but it lies in education. And I do believe if people learn how to sew a button, how to knit, how to crochet, they know they should not be paying €5 for a t-shirt because that's not its real value. It should not be its price. I hope, and I've been following some Portuguese, I don't know what to call them in English, but brand advisors that are talking about how prices are going up and how soon all the prices will go up, and small brands are not ready to up their prices. They are scared that they lose their customers, because when they started, and it happens a lot in Portugal, I'm not sure about Ben or in his context, but in Portugal, everyone that starts a business tends to downplay their true value because they're afraid they won't have customers. So everything is the lowest price they can have, which in a short run could be a good thing, but in the long run, it makes no savings associated with their money. And my question to Ben was because I'm a very big fan of hemp. I've been in Canada for 6 months before. I've learned a little bit of it, and I have a problem with hemp because a lot of people don't know, but a lot of the fashion industry comes from colonizing times, from racist problems that are very systematic. And I believe hemp has connections to that too, in a way that it's nothing new. We're using hemp like we just found out about it, but hemp has been used by indigenous people in very sustainable ways for ages and ages and ages. And I do believe it could be a little like he had 3 years of research. Maybe if he had talked with some indigenous tribes in Canada or the US, he might have been done this faster. But I read about it in Portugal. I know they're producing hemp in Portugal for medical reasons and for medication and stuff like that. It would be like, since Portugal has infrastructures for textile production, and we also have hemp for medical purposes, they don't use the whole thing. Couldn't it be, and because Bernardo has a brand, he could get some people together and push the government to allow hemp to be produced for textile uses and keep the production local, for example. That could be
Marta. Yeah, Marta, I'm sorry to cut you short there. I'm going to let Bernardo answer that after, so that we wrap up on the value chains conversation. Yeah. Because the twist that I wanted to bring into value chains, and like I asked to Ben and Bernardo, there the focus was more on logistics and how easily logistics can be disrupted, which has a huge impact on production, and of course on the final output of the company and the the profit and loss account. But in your case, I remember you talking before about transparency. Mm-hmm. What I wanted to ask you in terms of value chains to you is, one of the things, we live in a world where there's not a lot of trust. Trust has been eroded. And if we are talking about value chains where we are doing business with people and with organizations that we don't necessarily know, I mean, how do you build that trust? I mean, yeah, transparency is important. You mentioned before greenwashing, you mentioned labels. How can we bring that trust into the value chain? How can, for instance, Ben or Bernardo know that what they are buying is exactly what they're contracting?
I think that's a very hard question to answer, because the answer will not be pretty. I do think the one way now, because we let it go for too long, the problem is way out of our hands. In my opinion, I think that the answer for that would be to bring it closer to you. If it's so far away that you can't visit, you can't see, because, for example, I don't believe, the fashion revolution doesn't believe in boycotting on stop production with Asia. No, that's not the key. But if you are a big brand and you have the power to go there, to see the factory, to see your workers, to see who's producing your stuff, what conditions, then to see, and I'm not saying to schedule a visit on a certain day, and no, show up whenever, make a surprise. It should be okay, right? They should, because if it's the trust, I believe what you're telling me is that, oh, they have all these credentials, they say they're okay, so I should trust them. No, if that's the case, show up whenever. It should be okay. Not when you're planning, because we've seen stuff like that. We've seen fictional factories show up one day and people being at their door 2 days later because they lost their flight and they're not there anymore. I've heard stories like that in the fashion industry in China and India. So that happens, and trust is one of the key problems. And I do believe if you bring your supply chain closer to you, that should not be a problem. This is not to say that some really crazy things don't happen in Europe too. In Portugal, we've seen cases of it in Portugal. We've seen cases of it in the UK. Just with COVID, we saw some illegal workers making very little money in terrible conditions in the UK too. So we're not free from these problems. These problems don't happen only on the other side of the world where we can't see. They're here too. And it's like it is up to the designers, not the brand owners and everyone, to know who they're working with. If you have the chance, go visit, make it bring it closer to you if that's available, or visit if you can. But just make sure you see it, make sure you know the people, because there's one thing actually that it's interesting, and I've just learned about it a few days ago. So I read that somewhere in America, people are trying to mechanize the production. Fashion, for example, a buzzword. Something that is handmade, that says handmade in fashion, that's bullshit. Everything's handmade. No one's, there are hands sewing. Because textile is very elastic, no machine can sew for you alone. So they're trying to make it mechanized process to sew stuff, which is still very costly. It's not impossible, they found. But the thing is, all textiles are different, so they would have to adapt machines every time. They would have to adapt machines to every pattern of clothes. So it's not rentable yet, not with the technology we have today. But that's just to say, I don't believe that's the way. I believe we should value the human knowledge behind sewing and behind the industry. It's the only industry that depends on human hands for it all. So it should be valued. And just for example, in Portugal, a few years ago, we had a problem with Triumph, one of an underwear brand that it was acquired by someone else. They changed the production to China, and they left hundreds of women unemployed. And what was the problem in here? They were underemployed, and they could not apply because they were old women and because they only knew one step of the production change. So someone was sewing elastic, someone was sewing tags, no one knew the whole process of sewing underwear. So that's also like demand your factories to change, to make changes, make sure they teach people everything, to empower the workers for them to be independent too. So I think that's a lot of on the brands, on when you're ordering stuff, you're also paying. So you're also paying with your money. It doesn't matter if it's just you're the final customer or the brands working with partners. So it's very hard, the trust issue, but I believe it's also in the gut feeling. Gut feelings will help you, I hope.
Well, I mean, one of the things I always felt is that sustainability is also about emotions, right? And in the capitalist world, and fortunately that is changing a little bit, but in the capitalist world, there's this tendency to think that, if you are an emotional person, you cannot run a business well. And I actually think it's exactly the problem. I think one of the issues that we have is that most of the leaders of the big companies of the world actually lack emotional intelligence, because if they had it, they would be running their companies and their value chains differently. Because the other thing, Marta, is I feel there's a lack of information on the side of the final consumer. Take, for instance,
there's too much information, and because of that lack of information,
Exactly, but look, we all know now. We've all heard about blood diamonds, right? But diamonds are something that not the average Joe is going to buy one, right? I mean, I don't have one. Most people don't buy diamonds, but we all buy clothes, right? And we all know what happened in Rana Plaza in 2014, where more than 1,100 women and children lost their lives. So, there's also blood clothes. And there's not a lot of conversation around that. I mean, I remember when I was working in the cocoa supply chain, I was surprised because a lot of the children I met in small farms in Côte d'Ivoire were trafficked. They were bought from neighboring countries as slave work, right? And this is something that it doesn't really make it to the final consumer, right? And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for withholding that information. And by the way, I'm seeing here that Bernardo answered to your questions in terms of they do surprise visits and they supervise some of their sources in China. But I wanted to jump into the next question because, as I was suspecting, we have too much to share and we are very passionate about what we are sharing. So I knew the 45 minutes were going to be short. We were talking a little, and I know I cut you short there. We were talking about new materials, right? And the industry, and part of it is because of the environmental and social push for introduction of best practices in the fashion industry. The industry is a little bit more open to new materials. You mentioned a while ago that, namely when it comes to hemp, that what we are calling now new materials are not necessarily new materials. Can you, I cut you short there, but I wanted to bring it in now. What do you think about all this new materials? I mean, hemp is clearly one that is out there. Bamboo is another one that has been talked about in the fashion industry. The most recent one is mycelium. I mean, Stella McCartney just announced that they are going to stop using leather and they are going to be using, I think she registered the name as Milo. So what are really these new materials? Are they new? Aren't they new? But most importantly, are customers adapting to this?
Okay, so in terms of the new materials, I do not believe some of them are new. Like I said, there's even the leather I was talking about before. Indigenous cultures know how to take care of leather in sustainable ways. Why are we not using those ways and treating leather like the terrible nightmare it is? But not just that. For example, you mentioned bamboo. And bamboo is treated as a very eco-natural fiber, but actually to turn the green bamboo we associated with into textile, there's a lot of chemicals in that process that are very pollutive. So again, I think these are new materials. Are very even though new materials are mentioned in the fashion industry. Fashion designers are not, they don't have the knowledge to understand them. Brands use them as flags in marketing because people don't know what's behind them. And because they're associated with some part of nature, they think it's natural. So that helps greenwashing. So I do not think they are the key. They're not the key. They should be studied for sure, and they should advance in the future, but in ways that they will not make it worse. Because investing on bamboo only would be a problem as the technology that exists today.
Yeah.
And are consumers adapting? I don't think they are, because they don't even for example, there's one thing in technology that I really want to bring to engineers is the dyeing process. It's very pollutive and it's not even sustainable brands are talking about it. When you are organic cotton, okay, is it black? Black is the most pollutive color because it does not exist in nature. What are you doing about it? No one is talking about it. So why we need more advances? I've learned a few years ago that they're trying to use ink from animals to produce other colors, but it's very hard. And people are not, I had a friend who once posted a photo with a black and white t-shirt, and I asked her, how do you wash that, with the dark colors or the light colors? Because how do you take care of it at home? I think brands need to...
I'm sorry, I'm really sorry for interrupting you. I know that Bernardo needs to go, so hold that thought. We'll come back to you. I know Bernardo needs to go. So Bernardo, going to you, this entire conversation around new materials. I mean, I happen to have a T-shirt made of hemp, and when I mentioned that I had bought a T-shirt made of hemp, the thing was, oh, good for you. You know, when that thing starts getting holes on it, you can smoke it. So, what's your take on this new materials? You just as Ben are a living example of bringing to markets a product with a new material. What's your take on that, and how do you see the industry developing further?
Okay, guys, appreciate it. This is literally going to be my last intervention as I have to run into last meeting, which was at 5. But I wanted to answer Martha on this question, which is very important. And before answering yours, Miguel, I hope you don't mind, but basically the reason we have been trying to source and manufacture both in the US and in Portugal. Not only in Portugal, not only in Europe, but also in the US, that also has a big hemp culture. And the reason we don't do it is because, number one, these countries, both of them, are focusing on medical cannabis, which is medical hemp, or what we call medicinal cannabis, and which is very, very, very different from industrial hemp. One grows in height and is optimized to grow very strong fibers. The other one is grown to optimize to grow flowers, which is completely different subtype. And it cannot be used in the same way. It cannot be woven and transformed into fibers. It cannot be used to do the same yarn. And honestly, like you said, the problem is not the leather. The problem is to make cheap products that last, that suck, basically. So when I said that we are putting a lot of effort into making the best shoes made of hemp, it's make them really durable, because that's what makes a product sustainable. It's make them once, and that once lasts a long time. And in order to do that, we have to get it from the best. And the best, some unfortunately are not here in Portugal, are not in the US. Some do good things in Romania, which is a great country for hemp. Lithuania do some good stuff as well, but unfortunately, we have to go around the world to get the best. It sucks, but it's better to make a good product that is around the world than source a local product that it's not as good. Yeah, I mean, it's a compromise. I know it sucks, but well, but don't get me wrong. 1 month ago, we were visiting a farm in 𝙤𝙤𝙘𝙤. You can check in our Instagram. I was doing a live with a farm by Humberto, which is a local hemp producer in Portugal. He's doing an amazing job, and I'm just gonna meet him this weekend again to ask him how his things going, how is your infrastructure going to make hemp in Portugal. But you know, I'm doing part of the process here. I don't have money to change the industry, right? I'm focusing on making this single step really well. Yeah, but I'm supporting everyone that is like basically upstream my part. Regarding Miguel's question, this is actually part of our effort to educate people. As you know, my grandmother was the first person that I contacted when I had this idea, and she wanted to get me out. Like my grandmother, there's a lot of people that think that the shoes are for smoking. And if you go on our Instagram comments, a lot of people say this joke about the shoes. It sucks. But yeah, it's true. So the way we choose to deal with these things is just by, okay, it's part of the business. Let's take it smoothly and just laugh and just go along with people and say, yeah, you cannot smoke.